Hello and welcome to a video on Merle Gaming. I'm going to talk about the Rogue today. It's been my main this latest season. We're on patch 69-2, and I'm basically just going to attempt to impart all the wisdom I have about skills and perks in this video. In next video, I'll get into, I'll make this a couple part series. I'll get into more particular builds and statting out a little bit, and maybe we'll be a part 3 if there's more follow-up. But rogue stuff, tons of rogue stuff. All right, let's talk about all the perks. Let's talk about all the skills. They're not all obvious what they do. There's a lot of little hidden things within these that you wouldn't really expect. Well, some of them are pretty blatant. Some of them are more hidden than others. Okay, let's talk about it. I'll just start at the top. Ambush. What does ambush do? Uh, Gives you bonus damage and 10% move speed. 10% move speed is 30 move speed. So if you have a dagger out and you're running at, I don't know, 295 for 3 seconds, you're going to be running at 325, 30 move speed. That's pretty big. And it does appear, or it does disappear once the effect is used. So the 25% physical bonus damage is pretty big too. It just basically gets applied to this right here, bringing it well into the positive. It's negative. So this is kind of a cool thing. It doesn't do anything without hide, of course. Excuse me. It's all about the hide. All right, so it kind of turns just base hide into sprint. So if you're running along, you can just hit it real quick and you basically get a sprint. And kind of like the fighter victory strike too, where it does additional damage. So a pretty cool talent. I really like running this. Depends on how I feel about my play style currently, but I do like to have ambush. It's nice to have sprint. It's nice to have that burst of damage. It's a good talent. I think it's a pretty good talent. And that's all I'm really going to say about it for now. Let's talk about back attack. This one's rarely taken. There's some ambush styles, or sometimes I see people pair this with double jump. I don't personally play this style too much, so I might not be the quintessential expert on it. But back attack, it's not really good in, well, I guess what you would expect. When you're just face to face dueling someone, it's not great. But this is really good when you can ambush someone from behind, or if you can jump on them from above. So if you want to get to a high point with double jump, or just use the map. Really works out well when you drop down on people. That seems to be its main use. In the game, you think that you can like stealth up to people. Like you'd go something like this. Maybe this too, just for extra damage. And then 10 step, which is called stealth. But it gives you 10 steps while crouching, while stealth. So you can do something like this and think that you can get like a massive plus 55% physical power hit in the back. But it's actually rather hard to approach people from the back. They just always hear you, even crouch walking. So they generally turn their face towards you, unless it's in a team fight or something that's a little different. So the point here I'm making here is back attack seems in general a lot better when you're dropping down on people, but it is a lot of physical power, and it's good for mobs you can rotate around too. But it's kind of a hit and miss skill in my opinion. It's not consistently good. Sometimes it's just totally useless for an entire fight, and that feels kind of bad. So I usually don't take it for that reason, but it does have its uses. You can get the biggest burst right here. And if you're using a Rondel dagger, you get another 15%. It gets nuts. But I found that if you're using back attack and trying to sneak up on them, you basically need to have creep so that they can't hear where you're walking. And if it's a ranger with that thing where they can see your footprints anyway, it's even more futile. So the problem with a lot of this hide stuff, and this is my opinion, just thrown in here in the middle of this, is it just requires so many talents to do like the one thing you want to try to do. Because now you're absolutely crippled in normal combat. And basically all you can do is ambush. And if you're not doing your ambush strat, you basically have zero perks. And it's, you know, for example, well, creep is, I guess, useful out of it a little bit, but this basically makes it feel like you have zero perks most of the time, and whenever your hide's ready, you get to use your perks once. So that's the problem with this whole hide setup, in my opinion. It's kind of, I'll talk about it more later as we go down skills. And we just talked about creep. Some people will religiously take creep no matter what on rogues. I usually don't. I usually find that I can, well, I guess it depends. It's probably better in higher skill lobbies where the players are more aware of footsteps. But if you're running around in kind of low level lobbies and running into a lot of Timmies, they don't understand what footsteps mean hardly anyway. So you can ambush them just as well without creep, I've found. But especially if you're zipping at them at hyper speed with ambush. Uh, so I think creep gets better at higher levels for ambushing good players, but you can still ambush bad players without it. It has its uses, but oftentimes it feels like it doesn't do much unless you're doing that creep playstyle. And even though I play rogue a lot, it's not my favorite playstyle. I like to set up an ambush, but I do not like to sit for a long time. I keep moving around the map. I only set up an ambush if I actually hear someone or if I'm actually fighting, not just randomly sitting in a module. But that's me personally. All right, Dagger Mastery. This is. I hear a lot of people kind of not really understand this. Like, there's this whole misnomer thing of you got to get to 15 strength, which is not really that relevant, actually. What you typically want to do is get your physical power to at least 0, so it's not negative, so you're not getting a reduction on the damage calculation. And this Dagger Mastery almost does that on its own. If you're using a dagger, that brings it up to only -2. You only need 1 more physical power, 1 strength anywhere, which is pretty easy to get once you have Dagger Mastery. So Dagger Mastery kind of negates all these physical power problems that a rogue has. If you're going to take 1 damage perk, this is the one to take. This is probably the biggest boost in damage, I would say. I don't know. I haven't tested that theory, so it might not be entirely true. There might be a situation where Poison Weapon is actually more damage, because it is basically 4 more damage per attack, but we'll get to that. Let's go down the line. Double jump. It is what it is. I don't think I need to talk about this one. It is a play style. I personally never take this because I don't like losing that 10 move speed. I usually am not running high enough gear to negate that effect. But if you're running really high level gear and you've got plenty of move speed to spare, double jump's still good. Or if you're on a map where you really want to take advantage of double jump, it's really good. I see it paired with back attack a lot. I see back attack short sword kind of thing with that setup, which could be good. But I don't really know what else to say about it. It obviously allows you to exploit some places on the map. If you're doing specifically PvE, it lets you get to some of the best cheese positions to kill sub bosses. So that's kind of cool, but you kind of after a while you'll figure out some natural spots where you don't need double jump anyway. So kind of wears that effect wears off. But cool skill. I personally don't take it too often unless I'm really in the mood to double jump. All right, I want to talk about hide mastery. I do like hide mastery. It's just it goes back to the same problem of you're using all your perks to make one of your skills a tiny bit better or a lot better. So if you take hide mastery, you get to hide quite frequently. That's not very useful on its own because you have to stay still. This is really no difference than just drinking a potion as it is. So it's not even good here. It's still bad. It's still bad. It's just there's a potion that does this, you know? It's kind of goofy that the skill basically does nothing. And I don't know. I'm not a fan of how it's designed, but I don't know what the fix is, so I'm not going to go into that too much. But I don't think hide mastery is good unless you also pair it with 10 step, and then you also pair it with some other stuff. Like you're going to need enough damage, so you probably got to take this anyway. Or I mean, if you're going to be hiding frequently, ambush might be a little bit better. But if you're hiding this frequently and you need the cooldown reduction, the duration is really nice too for hiding from teams. This is the pickpocket thing. 10 step, hide mastery, pickpocket. That's the way things go. So we'll get more into that. Hide mastery is kind of cool though. I have found it to be pretty useful in some fights, just being able to hide sooner, and increasing the duration throws people off because you're gone for so long that they're like, did he go behind something? Is he still here? You know, they start questioning reality. But you also kind of need to take creep with it, or else they're just going to hear where you went. So, like if you want to go the pickpocket build, this is basically the full setup. Is that right there? Is that way you can really get close to people. We'll talk more about those in a second, but that's hide for you. I think it's good when you have the rest of the setup, but it does basically nothing on its own useful. It's just like a higher quality invis pot, which just feels bad. That's not a skill worth taking on its own. But it does pair nicely with other things. All right, the jokester. Jokester's kind of the quintessential must-have, and that's actually kind of the problem with it, is that it's a must-have. Because now, as a rogue, you only have 3 perk slots, so you don't really get the 4th one if you think that Jokester's a must-have. And I find that problematic, because I kind of want 4 perks. So what do you do? Where does this fit in if you're doing a build? It's hard to fit it in sometimes. You could replace Dagger Mastery with it. This 2 to all attributes is about 8 no, that's wrong. 4 physical power. So it'll get this a little bit better. It'll be like negative 13 in game, for example. I think, yeah. But it also gives you dex, agility, constitution. So it gives you, or not constitution, but you know what I'm saying, vigor. So it does, it's just obviously good. And it's actually quite good. It's a lot of stat points. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Will and knowledge aren't super useful. We'll talk about that soon. All right. So Jokester kind of pairs a little bit better with poison weapon, I think. And we'll get to that soon. Let's talk about pickpocket. Now, pickpocket's kind of hidden OP, I think. It's actually better than it seems. Yeah, you can steal from people. That's cool. But when I take pickpocket, I never even steal from people, which might sound goofy because that's what it's for. But additionally, your hide will not be revealed when you are bumped into. Is actually rather huge. I've had fights where I've been able to sneak by people because I wasn't revealed from bumping into them, and get behind them and get into a better position, which feels really cool. Here's a clip where Pickpocket arguably won me a fight, and for context, I was doing random trios. I got matched with, I think, a fighter and a cleric or something, and we got caught in between 2 teams, or maybe we ran in between 2 teams, and basically they got clobbered. There wasn't really anything I could do to save them other than go in and die with them, but I chose to live. And a rogue came and tried to hunt me down, so we got to square off in a nice little 1v1, and you'll see here, he goes into stealth, I go into stealth after him. We bump into each other. Other rogue is revealed because he doesn't have pickpocket, so he bumped into someone and reveals. I do not reveal because of pickpocket, so I get the jump on him and manage to pull it off. And here's another clip where I was able to squeeze by a barbarian that was chasing me and come up behind him thanks to pickpocket. So the fact that you're not revealed when bumped into is actually really huge. This allows you to hide from mobs better, because mobs also reveal you if they bump into you. So it's a pretty cool addition to hide, but it has, once again, the same problem. If you take this, it doesn't really do much. You also just have to take 10 step 2 to move around, right? And then if you want to buff it in other ways, you need to take more, and you only have a few talent points left. And then if you think one of them has to be Joker, you only got 1. And some people are sworn by this traps and locks too, so they might not have any room for Dagger Mastery now, and it just feels bad. So, a bit awkward there. With just not having enough perks. I think Rogue should have 5 perks or something. I don't know. Or maybe they can take one that combos to 2 stealth abilities or something like that. Like if you take one of the stealth abilities, you could put another one on there with it. So I feel like Rogue needs something like that. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're too strong. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I feel like that would be really cool if they could do something like that, because this whole hide thing is just kind of too awkward with having to pile so many perks on for it to do anything. It just does nothing on its own. What's the point? At least give them the 10 step for free. They should at least give you the stealth for free. Why wouldn't they? I don't know. I'm getting a little rambly here, but I think pickpocket is better than seams. Also, the items worn in utility slots do not appear on the waist is actually rather huge too. You'd be surprised how much harder it is to hit someone in the dark when their potions aren't glaring. And I know you can just de-equip your potions, but if you want to have them at the ready and you want to be moving at top speed, yeah, sure, you can manage that. You can open your inventory and right click them real quick and throw them back on your slots. But just to not ever have to manage that is a kind of nice little bonus too. So I do often take this if I'm going 10 step. Pickpocket is, I think, a little hidden OP. I don't think people realize how good it is. Not sure what else to say about it. It obviously doesn't give you any damage, but in a way it actually does because you're able to get better positions from your 10 step and coming out of hide with this because they just don't see you as well. So it kind of lets you get in a few extra hits here and there. I think sometimes I feel like, and it can change a fight more than you think. So a very interesting skill. I like that it does like 3 different things. You don't see any of these others doing like 3 different things. All right, let's move on to poison weapon. Poison weapon. If you're going to take poison weapon, you usually take jokester as well, and that's because you really need the additional will for this to fully hit. This goes off your magic damage, 0.5 scaling, which means whatever your negative magic is, it's going to reduce it. So, and then plus they have magic resist and they have probably some debuff duration. So this poison doesn't necessarily hit very hard on certain players, but they did buff this recently and give it some healing reduction, which is kind of cool. So that is a nice little addition. But with Jokester, you get some additional will, which gives you a little more damage on your poison and on your normal attack. So it kind of has even a more effect on your damage once you have poison weapon, is my thought process. But poison weapon's very cool. It's better when you have faster attacks. It's probably the one to take over Dagger Mastery if you're tight on skill points, but not using a dagger. If you're using like a short sword or a rapier, uh, poison weapon's good. Or if you really want to buff your team, if you're doing like a 3v3 thing and staying close, Jokester's probably a little better than the poison, although the poison is now a lot better in team fights than it ever was since it reduces incoming healing. So there's some debate on there about that, but it's another one of those things where it works pretty good on its own, and it works pretty good in combination with things. It's a good talent. I like poison weapon. I frequently take it, but not always. Stealth, we've kind of touched on this. It's 10 step. If you're taking hide, you absolutely have to take stealth. It goes with it. It's so quintessential that there's no point in taking one without the other ever. Like if you have hide, you just have to have this, or hide doesn't really do anything, unfortunately. It's just my personal opinion. These need to be combined. Why are they not? You're basically just saying if you take hide, you get 1 less perk slot, and they're almost saying if you take hide, you get 2 less perk slots. If you take hide, you get 3 less perk slots. Heck, if you take hide, you don't get any perks. Okay, you don't get any perks. Or I guess you got to take this. This would be better. If you take hide, you don't get any perks, and you're either killing people or stealing from them. And it's just, why? Why? At least let us remove this and have one. Let us have one, please. Let us have 1 perk, Iron Mace, please. If we take hide, let us take 1 perk. Because it doesn't seem like you're allowed to do that. And it's, I really don't like it. All right. Personal opinions aside, if you're taking hide, you at least got to take this. This is the bare minimum. This is still pretty good. Right here, this is good on its own. You can still kind of trick people. You can still get around positions. You can still kind of cheese mobs a little bit certain ways, like stealth to a door so that they don't follow you all the way to it, so you have time to open it, close it, kind of thing. This lets you do that. Without hide or without stealth, you can't do that. So this is probably the best talent here and the most required with hide. And I really wish they would just put it on hide. I'm never going to agree that it should be its own thing because it's just hide. What other class has a skill that is just completely useless unless you pile talents on it? What other class? I'm sure there's one. Well, there's also Caltrops, which is probably the worst skill in the game, I think. just simply, it sounds all cool, but what they don't tell you, what this tooltip doesn't say. Okay, we'll get to that soon. All right, let's continue on. I don't want to get too sidetracked. Let's keep going in order. Thrust. This is just good. The more armor your opponent has, the better it gets. So it's great for when you're fighting clerics and fighters. Although Dagger Mastery tends to just be overall better. So usually people take this if they have to choose, but you can take both for some super, super dagger damage. And you can even take this for some super, super dagger damage. And then you can also take this for even more. And you can just hit like a truck with a dagger with something like this. And you can switch these out a little bit, like if you're still wanting hide. Or if you want sprint, rather, to be like a fighter, you can go like that. Oh. You can go something like that and still get sprint. You can't 10-step, you can't do any special moves, but you can hit it real quick to get a burst of damage and a burst of speed, which is still good. So there's something like that you can do. But quintessential high dagger damage usually goes something like this. And they also usually take cutthroat to shut off your abilities and rupture and just, you know the drill. You get landmined right here. You can still landmine people. This just basically makes it one hit less and doesn't let them respawn much for 2 seconds. So pretty devastating, but also you have no hide here, so it's a little harder to get on top of them. You're basically like a Slayer fighter at this point. And I think if you're going this route, it might be just better to play fighter potentially. I think it's just directly better, but that's debatable. This is probably the highest dagger damage in the game, you could say. I don't think you can hit harder with a dagger other than with this type of setup. And if you really wanted to have the highest single burst, you could do something like, I guess I'm getting a little out of order with this video, but I'm trying. All right, let's just hypothesize here real quick. You could do something like this, where when you come out of hide, you get that 25, and if you happen to be backstabbing too, it's total 55. Then another 15, 70. You're up to 70 bonus physical damage on a single attack potentially here with something like this. So you could do some nutty stuff here, is the point. And you can really one-shot people more than you think. But there's another thing that I haven't really talked about, and that's about this this scaling, this physical damage power scaling. The harder your weapon hits, the more important this power bonus is. And daggers tend to not hit very hard. They hit for like 20 to 25. So they don't scale super well with physical power bonus. And this just gives you a bunch of physical power bonus. It doesn't scale well to begin with. So it's kind of a whatever. It's kind of a, in my opinion, it's kind of a big whatever doing all that. I almost think if you're not taking double jump and you're not taking hide, you're better off probably playing a class that does what you do better anyway. That's another one of my opinions, of course. All right, so all that to say that thrust goes along with the highest damage dagger build. So once you're hitting that hard, getting that armor pins, also just more on top. But most people don't seem to take thrust anymore. It seems to have fallen out of favor, and I think the main reason is there's just not enough perk slots to go around, since you have to take so many other things to make your skills work properly generally, or specifically hide. All right, traps and locks. I love traps and locks. This is better than it seems. This also reduces your deaths to rangers pretty significantly, because of course stepping in a trap as a rogue is instant death always. You don't survive that unless they've already left the module or whatever. They're completely gone. But usually stepping in a trap is instant death. And since there have been so many ragers lately, I almost religiously take this, because yeah, I just hate dying to traps. And if I have a teammate that has traps, it also makes it so that I don't step in their traps. So this is a cool skill. This is really one of the unique ones for rogue that I think is kind of worth taking more than it seems. Disarming traps is kind of whatever. It can be kind of cool. Detecting is obviously good, but unlocking any door, unlocking any chest is nice, except the ones that require special keys. That's cool. Never having to worry about finding lockpicks is nice. Being able to just sell your lockpicks on the market because they go pretty well is kind of nice. So this does make you a lot of money in PvE too. So if I'm farming, I am absolutely taking traps and locks with me. My intention is to go all the way to Inferno, and unlock as many chests as possible along the way, I take this. But if not, if I just want highest damage, obviously that doesn't really do anything for your damage. You just got to be extra aware of those traps, because this will spoil you. This will absolutely spoil you, uh, as far as the hunter traps go, and without it, you will just forget to look. At least that's what I found. But very, very cool skill. Doesn't technically do any damage, but it does definitely help you with your positioning and taking a lot less damage. So this almost goes along with being kind of a, you can think of it as like a tanky skill, because it helps you avoid damage a lot. You just get hit by less PvE traps, which you can learn to avoid, but some of them are kind of awkward, or this little thing that jabs you in the feet or something. I don't know. They're pretty clever with their traps in this game, I've found. So until you're super good at knowing them all, it comes in handy. It saves you health. So just better than it seems. All right, let's talk about the skills. Caltrops. Problem with caltrops, although it sounds good and it seems, everything about it when you read it seems good, but what they don't tell you on here is you get 3 charges for the entire dungeon. You can use this 3 times and you're done. It doesn't do anything after that. So I don't know why they would do that. Let it recharge somehow. I don't know, but I don't know what they're thinking not letting that recharge it. It really doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. Even campfiring doesn't recharge it, which of course doesn't make sense. They're physical little caltrops, but I think this is just kind of a failed design overall. I don't even, they should have just not put it in the game, I think, or made it so that somehow it recharges, even if it's really slow. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about caltrops. But this is a completely dead skill. It means nothing. No one's ever going to take it. And if they do, they're just trolling, basically. That's my opinion. Cutthroat. Cutthroat's super good. It does more than it says. So, yeah, I guess that's a reoccurring trend. Things seem to do more or less than they actually say on these tooltips. I don't know if they'll ever update them. That's up to Iron Mace. And they seem to be really busy dealing with ragey kids on the internet right now. So I don't think they're mentally doing well until they block all that out or something. Then they can focus on the game again. All right, Cutthroat. Uh, it says you silence a target for 2 seconds, disabling skills, perks, performance abilities. This is also, this, you could also just call this dispel and silence, because it also removes all their buffs. It says disabling, which isn't, you think since it says silence, it means it can't do anything more, but it does. It removes, correct me if I'm wrong, please, in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it removes second wind, removes all the cleric's buffs, like bless and stuff, it removes most bard buffs, I believe. Removes like barbarian rages and anything you're turning on in your weapon, like reckless attack and stuff. I believe it removes all that. So it removes all kinds of things off of players and says they can't use stuff for 2 seconds. And this tooltip is not clear that it removes your current buffs. So I think that's kind of the error they made, is they just don't tell people how this works. So you have to figure it out on your own or go learn from somebody else. So I don't mean to critique Iron Mace, but it literally is a problem that you don't tell people what your skills actually do. Why wouldn't you? It takes one more line of text and your players have the knowledge of what the skill actually does. So I have to criticize them for that, because it's just a total growing pain. And the fact that they haven't fixed it yet just kind of blows my mind. Like, it's been the exact same since I've been playing this game. Fix it, please. Please. It's one line of text. Stop answering people on Discord. Whatever. Ignore all the social stuff for a minute and just like fix all these little basic things with your game, or add content. Whatever. I got to get off that train. I don't want to go there. Hide. We've talked about hide a ton. There's a problem with hide, where if someone hits you with a dagger or a Francesca axe and you hide, they can still see that dagger or Francesca axe. So keep that in mind. And also, this does nothing until you fill up your perks with all the hide stuffs, basically, because it's just like a terrible hide potion or a terrible invisibility potion. So clearly mismanaged skill, but it's cool. I feel like you almost have to do this at least if you're playing rogue, just because you got to experience it. But yeah, I think I covered it well enough when I was going over the perks, since it's kind of required for the perks anyway. You know, they pair together. Rupture. I always take Rupture 100% of the time. This is just a guaranteed thing, you know. Only time you wouldn't take this, I guess, is if you're going specifically pickpocket. It's just a lot of damage, and your main goal as a rogue is to get players dead, basically, and Rupture just directly helps you do that more than other abilities seem to sometimes, other skills. So it's good. It's kind of probably the best overall skill, I'd say. But I don't know. I haven't really seen many people play without Rupture. It's just so good. It's basically an extra free attack if you land attack, is what it feels like. Maybe a little more. Smoke Pot. I don't really ever play this. This suffers from the same problem as Caltrops, where it just has limited charges and they never recharge. So it's kind of a useless thing. Although I've heard some people say they've won fights because of it. Reducing move speed is like -30 move speed to the player. The cover is, I don't know. I don't find it to be very easy to use. It's very hard to use well. It like almost reveals your position to everybody because a big puff of smoke goes up. So you're like, okay, there's a rogue right there. You know, it's not that great. And being the fact that, you know, if you could kind of spam it on cooldown and do some cool tricks, that might be cool. But the fact that you can use it, I don't even know how many times. I never take this. You can only use it like 2 or 3 times, and you can never use it again on your raid. So a completely dead skill. If you want to go skillless rogue, you could go like this, and you basically have no skills. Let's see, what else would we take for skillless rogue? I don't know. Take all these. There you go. Take all the stealth perks without actually taking stealth. How hilarious is that? And it just lets you. It's just like, yeah, that's a fine build. Yeah, roll with it. You basically have 0 talents. What else has nothing? This is almost a nothing burger most of the time. This is kind of a nothing burger. So I guess what else could you say? Pickpocket's kind of a nothing. Yeah, this is like a 0 talent rogue, but they're all it's just, why? Why? Okay. Tumbling's kind of cool. Takes some practice to get good at it, but it's a cool little talent. I don't really use it personally. It doesn't really fit with my playstyle, but I think it's a cool one to have. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. I haven't really tested it enough to really know. I don't. Every time I did use it, I felt like I could just sidestep that way instead, and it's about just as fast. So it never felt as useful as like Rupture or the other ones. Weak point is great if you're not taking thrust, or you can combine it with thrust, I guess, too. But reducing an armor rating for 40% for 3 seconds, only when melee attacking, this can really help you kill someone quickly. If you get a Rupture weak point on them and stay on them for a moment, they're dead. It's great for the landmine strat. Also, Cutthroat's great, shutting off all their stuff. Can kind of function in place. I've never seen anybody go both of these. Usually they go one or the other in Rupture. Or they go one or the other and hide if they really don't want to take Rupture. But the only 3 or 4 talents that get picked reasonably are Cutthroat, Hide, and Rupture, and Weak Point occasionally. Caltrops and Smoke Pot are the troll skills. Tumbling's kind of troll too, I think. And some people don't even take Hide anymore. They just refuse. But at that point, I think you just need to play a different class, unless you're double jumping. So that's it. Look out for part 2. I'll talk about some builds, some builds I like, and some different variants of ways you can use skills and gear and what to kind of aim for on your bonuses with certain builds. So look out for that in episode 2. Thanks for hanging out. See you later. Peace.